and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do my March wrap-up. This is a wrap-up for basically the middle 2 weeks of March because the first week of March I used to wrap up my February reading, as in February I hadn't read that much. And then the last week of March I decided I wanted to start watching the Korean zombie drama called All of Us Are Dead, which is really fun. If you don't know, I very much like anything with zombies. Really good manga to read is I Am a Hero. So good. And it was a good movie too. But yeah, so still not, like, I am reading. When I'm reading, I am seriously reading, but I'm still kind of distracted. And however, I am reading in Japanese, which does slow me down a little bit, but I am starting to pick up the pace, which will be very exciting and I think will lead to some very excellent future videos coming along. So still a slow start to the year, but I'm now starting to feel like the reading bug is coming. Like it's here, the motivation is up, it's high. I'm having a lot of fun reading when I'm reading, especially reading the Japanese language books. So I think from here on out we're gonna start seeing maybe more exciting wrap-ups, or at least like wrap-ups with a little bit more content. Yeah, super excited about that. So let's wrap up what I read in the middle 2 weeks of March. So as I said, I've been reading some Japanese language books, which means I've been reading books in Japanese. And let's start with the first one, むらさきのスカートの女 by Imamura Natsuko. So this has been translated. I think it was released last year. I was supposed to read it last year to coincide with the release date in English. But this is The Woman in the Purple Skirt by Natsuko Imamura. And this book is like kind of, people are reacting it to really weird because the ending is weird. It's really crazy. And I think I have to agree with them that the ending is, it's out there. So it's kind of, that will decide whether you like the book. I like it, but it is weird, and I could have maybe liked it a little bit more, but I still enjoyed myself. But what is The Woman in the Purple Skirt? Well, first of all, this is an Akutagawa Prize winner, which, if you don't know what that is, I had a video maybe a few weeks ago explaining the very famous Japanese literary prize called the Akutagawa Prize, but this was the winner. And it's about the woman in the yellow cardigan stalking the woman in the purple skirt, and basically creating this life for this woman in the purple skirt to kind of enter the real world, because the lady in the yellow cardigan has only really seen this woman just kind of following the same routine, works for a little while, then is out of work for a bit. She comes home, she gets some bread, she eats in the park, she goes home, and the next morning she just repeats that until and she just kind of like goes through many jobs. And the woman in the yellow skirt is very curious, very keen to get to know this woman. So she kind of creates this scheme to have the woman work in the same hotel as she, as part of the cleaning crew. And from there, the plot just escalates and escalates into this really weird idea of like, it basically just, it kind of, the book really works on sense of identity. Who is who's the victim, who's the perpetrator, who's controlling who is being controlled. It really works with like these, just like these push-pull dynamics where it really plays with your perception of the book, to where once you've read the ending, the shocking ending, you'll definitely want to reread the book and go to the beginning to see like what you might have missed, and to kind of see like what the dynamic actually was compared to what you thought it was when you first read the book. So this was super exciting. It's so easy to read. Like, I think even in Japanese, if I push myself, I think I could read this in a day. It's so easy. Like in English, this would definitely be like a 2-hour read at tops. Like just afternoon, really good afternoon book that'll just really pull you in and just really make you question everything you're reading. But yeah, I really like, I have to say, like, I really enjoyed this one. I wasn't sure once I read it what I felt about it, but I think the experience as a whole I definitely enjoyed, and it's definitely something I would recommend, because it just really plays with you, this one. It's just, I would be interested to see what other kind of endings maybe the author had come up with, as potential possibilities for her book. And I'd really be curious to actually speak with the author and ask her why she chose this ending. Like, was it planned the entire time, or did it just kind of like release from her typing fingers as she got to the end? So yeah, really curious about this one. A lot to think about, but really just that interaction between the lady in the purple skirt and the woman in the purple skirt and the lady in the yellow cardigan. Is really, really interesting. So really enjoyed this. Really happy that I finally read this, because as maybe if you've been watching a few of my videos since last year, you know that this has been on my sort of like continuous TBR for many, many months. Well, basically a year, because I'd read like 5 pages, and then I read 10 pages, and then I read to like page 30, and I kept meaning to read the book, and then it just wasn't happening, and then finally I just sat down and finally read it. But yeah, very happy I finally got to this one. So much, apparently, I just talked for 4 minutes about a book that I wasn't planning on talking about that much. But that's the excitement of sitting in front of the camera. So the next book, I decided to continue with my Japanese reading streak, because I finished... Nope, that's not true. That's actually the second book I read. The first book I read is this one called Natsu no Niwa za Frenze by Yumoto Kazumi. Yumoto Kazumi is her name. This was my book club pick with my Japanese reading book club, which is just the 3 of us that were reading 1 book a month in Japanese. And this is... actually has been translated to English. The Japanese title is Summer Garden, The Friends, and the English title is just The Friends. And the thing that was really interesting is that I had never heard of this book until I looked it up, until I cataloged it in library thing, and then it pulled up the English translation, and I was just like, where did this come from? Because I'm pretty well versed into what books have come out into translation, at least when it comes to books translated from the Japanese, but I had never heard of this. And what it turns out is that in English, it's been marketed as children's literature. And I'm going to get into that. So basically what this book is about is basically one summer you have 3 boys who kind of come from broken family backgrounds. And one of them has just come home from his grandmother's funeral. He wasn't really very close to his grandmother. He didn't know her very well. So it's kind of very strange for him to just all of a sudden have this experience of, oh, here's a dead person, let's have a funeral for them. And so when he comes back with his friends, they start to fixate on this one old man in the neighborhood who basically is a very solitary man. He has no interaction with other people, and he really just keeps to himself. So there's this rumor, oh, he's gonna die soon, and they're like, okay, well, we're gonna wait for this guy to die, and then we're gonna be the ones to discover him when the time comes, and then we'll be able to get the experience to see the dead body. But as they can start to trail the old man becomes very cognizant and aware of them, and he starts to change his own behavior. And little by little, the 3 boys become friends with the old man, and they sort of just share this beautiful summer with each other. And through that, the boys learn a lot about the concept of death and living, and basically living through hard times, especially as the old man shares his experience as a soldier during the war. So basically it's just this really concept of what do relationships mean, the importance of blood relationships versus relationships with people who aren't related to. Also just, a nice coming of age story about these boys who are really trying to find themselves, and really try to see if they want a future with their own families or without their own families, just because their family backgrounds are so different. And this was just a really poignant, really, really lovely story. I actually really enjoyed this. There was this one passage that I really liked, which if you were to read the Japanese version, around page 155, 156, that really had this moment where it talked about memories when we die, and maybe when we die, it's not as wasteful as you would think it would be, because perhaps maybe our memories kind of go back into the earth, and then they sprout up with the new season, and people can sort of pick those memories and they build their own memories off of that. So basically, your memories never go to waste, because somehow or another they will end up getting shared with future generations. And I thought that was really beautiful, and that was really lovely. So there are really a lot of these beautiful little poignant moments that made the story really lovely and quite heartbreaking at the same time. I mean, the book can only really go in one direction. I think you can guess what it is without even having read the book, but even knowing that, and maybe even because you know that in your heart, it kind of really creates an additional connection to this book. So for me, when I saw that this was children's literature, I understand the idea behind the marketing of that when it comes to the English translation, but I don't think that just because the characters are young boys, I think they would probably, I don't remember their ages, but I think they'd probably be like young middle school. But yeah, I don't think just because the characters are young that this has to be considered children's literature. I think this is an excellent book to read for elementary school students, middle school students either. But I think it's also a really poignant and lovely book to read as an adult as well. The writing doesn't scream children's literature. In the original Japanese, this is very much in the regular adult literature section. There's no separation between the two. This is a book that anyone can read at any age, and I think it might be even more unfortunate that a lot of people won't have access to the book just because it's been marketed as children's literature in the US, or maybe in the UK as well. I don't know. I only know about the US market. But yeah, so this is The Friends by Kazumi. Sorry, her name's I'm not familiar with this name, so I have to always remember how to say it, but Kazumi Yumoto. So The Friends, and I really, really loved this poignant little summer book. Really enjoyed that. The other book I finished this past month was another Jules Verne book. I mentioned this, I just recently did a Jules Verne ranking, which ranks my preference of a favorite to least favorite when it comes to the Jules Verne I've read recently, so you can check out that video. But the book I read is called Andram Livoni. This was translated as A Drama in Livonia. And this was really fun because my editions are from the 1960s and they don't have any blurbs or any sort of summary in any of them, so I always come into my Jules Verne books very, very blind. I don't look them up when I pick them. I don't look them up before I start reading them. And so this was really fun because it ended up being a simple, not science fiction. Jules Verne is known for his science fiction, but this has no science fiction in it. It just ended up being a very simple murder mystery kind of story. But Jules Verne definitely puts his personality, he puts his pizzazz in it, he puts his spirit of adventure, and he puts his really, really lovely writing. I love Jules Verne's writing, absolutely adore his writing, and he puts all of that into this, what would otherwise just be a simple murder mystery book, but he really gives you that sense of adventure. So basically what this is about is you open up on this traveler who is escaping from a labor camp in Siberia, and he's going back to the area of Livonia, which is sort of the Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania area. And basically you see this man going across Siberia and escaping a camp. And then you change scene to this family with a very prestigious Slav or Slavic man. I don't know what we would say in English. I don't know if we would just call them Slavs or Slavic. But he is being sort of held up in high esteem by his community, and is kind of being asked to represent the community to go against the Germans, because the Germans are also kind of trying to take this region for themselves. And so you have this murder mystery where this man who's held in high regard and esteem is being accused of murder. So you have this book where you're trying to tying in all these different plot points. You have the background of this Germans versus the Slavs or Slavic people trying to sort of take back their region or take a region for themselves. So you have the political environment in the background. You have this mysterious man who's escaped a labor camp at the beginning of the book, and then you have this murder in a not a boarding house, but in a lodge, like a travel lodge in the middle of the forest. And it's all ties in and just creates this really great adventure, just like Jules Verne knows how to do. This is just, I really love this one. It was on the lower side of my list in the previous Jules Verne ranking, but that's only because it doesn't consider science fiction. It doesn't contain any science fiction elements, and I think Jules Verne excels at that so much, and that elevates a lot of his adventures. That makes me want to rank those higher, but that doesn't mean this is not a good book. I thought it was excellent. I thought it was so much fun, and it was such a real pleasure to get back to Jules Verne. So those are the books I was completed. So in the last week of the month, I was like, well, maybe I know I'm watching the zombie series, but I do still want to read. So I did continue reading. I just haven't finished these books. So you'll see them in the next wrap up, but I did want to mention what I'm currently reading. I am about 80 pages into another Japanese language book. This, however, has not been translated into English, but this book is called消滅世界by Murata Sayaka. And if you recognize that name, Sayaka Murata, this is by the author of the Akutagawa Prize winning book, Convenience Store Woman. Her latest English release is called Earthlings. Although I have not read Earthlings, this is not the original Japanese of Earthlings. But yeah, this has not been translated yet in English, but I think it definitely will be, because it's really, really interesting. But what is this book about? It's about basically an alternate Japan, where after the war, Japan really worked on creating and enhancing and finessing the technology of artificial insemination. And basically, couples are no longer having sex. Basically, they're no longer having sexual relations, and all children are born from artificial insemination. So this book really gets into the idea of this concept of sexless Japan. It gets into the idea of what it means, what are marriages, what is the purpose of marriage in Japan. It gets into the idea of the role of having a child in a relationship in Japan. It also, which is very interesting, goes into the sort of this idol, like otaku culture, like geek culture in Japan, where basically the population, instead of having these live interactions with other humans, they're basically creating these relationships with like online virtual characters. So this book really goes into that and discusses all that. There are a few plot holes, which maybe she'll cover later in the book, but right now there are a few ideas in my head where I think, well, is she going to talk about this? Because this, this world wouldn't really work in that sense. But despite that, this has a lot of good ideas in this book, and I'm so excited to talk about this and to finish this and to share it with you, because right now it's really, really interesting. So that's Shoumetsu Sekai by Murata Sayaka. And then the other book that I'm reading is the book Juste après la vague, which means just after the wave, although if I were translating into this English, I would drop the just and just call it After the Wave. But this book is by Sandrine Collette. Sandrine Collette I read about 2 years ago, I think. I read her book Rien que de la poussiere, although I read her book in English, which is called Nothing But Dust, not realizing that she was a French author. I had read it in English, but the English translation was absolutely beautiful, absolutely fantastic, and I really loved that book, which was about this this family, this very difficult mother, and their life in Patagonia in Argentina. And that book was just absolutely stunning. So I wanted to revisit this author, and so I found this book, which is Juste après la vague, which is very, very interesting as well. It's basically a mother and father who have 9 children, and basically just 13 days ago, a volcano collapsed, and basically the ocean the water rises, and it enveloped their entire region except for the hill that they were living on. But they can't stay on this new island anymore because the water is still going up and up, and so they have to escape. But the thing is that the boat cannot fit all 9 children and the parents, so they are forced to leave some children behind. And so the story is split into 3 parts. The first, where we follow the children who are left behind. Then we follow the parents, and they're fleeing this island. And then the third, I won't reveal what it is because that would sort of spoil where we're going. And I haven't finished it anyway, but I am on the 3rd part, so I've read like 2/3 of the book. But the third book goes and explores what happened after the parents left. So this is really, really good as well. It's excellent. I'm so happy to have discovered the author Sandrine Collette, because these 2 books so far, absolutely enjoying them. So yeah, this one's not translated in English, but I highly, highly recommend Nothing But Dust, because that was an excellent book. So yeah, that's where I'm at with this month. I did also read one manga in those 2 weeks. I read Boku Dake ga Inai Machi, which actually translates to the town that I'm the only one who doesn't exist. But because that title is really awkward in English, it has been although this has been translated into English, it's called Erased in English, which I think is also a very excellent title. But I discussed this in my manga corner catch-up in a previous video, so definitely go check that out, because I have decided to separate my manga reading from my novel reading, so that I can have time to actually talk about everything. So yeah, in any case, that is where my March is leading. Having an exciting April planned. Yeah, I'm just, there are so many good books on my pile, and the motivation is back, and then the whole reading Japanese part is just like, I'm so excited about that. Super, super fun. So yeah, that's it. I will see you guys in my next video, where I will have shorter hair. I think I'm gonna cut off about this much, so goodbye to this long hair. I'm tired of trampling you. Looks good though today, right? But it's a pain. It's a pain. But yeah, so I'll see you guys next week in my next video with short hair. So goodbye for now, and have a good day. Bye.